Beneath the quiet landscape of Wyoming lies a hidden world carved by time itself. A world where sunlight has never touched the stone, where narrow tunnels twist endlessly through the mountain, where a single mistake can trap a person in darkness forever. Caves hold a strange fascination for those who dare to enter them. They promise discovery, adventure, and the thrill of exploring places few people have ever seen. But caves are also unforgiving. Deep underground, there are no quick escapes, no easy rescues, and no room for error. For those who underestimate them, the consequences can be terrifying. Today's story follows a group of teenagers who set out for what they believed would be a harmless afternoon of exploration. Instead, they would discover just how quickly curiosity can turn into a fight for survival. A moment of excitement would trigger a chain of events that nearly buried two of them alive beneath hundreds of pounds of stone. And in the darkness of Tongue River Cave, time would begin to run out. Viewer discretion is advised. It was the afternoon of June 2nd, 2004. 9 teenagers stood gathered near the entrance of Tongue River Cave, a limestone cave system located in northern Wyoming. The cave had long been known to locals as an interesting place to explore. It wasn't considered especially dangerous, and many visitors had walked its main passages before. For the teenagers that day, it felt like the perfect place for an adventure. Among them were Blaha and Dana Herbert, both 16 years old. Like many teenagers drawn to exploration, they were curious about what might exist deeper inside the cave system. None of the group had any real caving experience. They carried only basic supplies, inexpensive flashlights, a few spare batteries, and a couple of borrowed headlamps from camping gear. What they did not bring were helmets. They had no ropes, no protective equipment, and no real understanding of how unpredictable caves can be. Still, confidence often replaces caution in youth. To them, this wasn't a dangerous environment. It was simply an adventure waiting to happen. One by one, they stepped into the cave's dark entrance. Behind them, the sunlight slowly faded. At first, the cave felt welcoming. The main passage was wide and tall, allowing the group to walk comfortably through the rocky corridor. Their flashlight beams swept across walls carved by centuries of flowing water. The air inside the cave was cool and still. Every sound echoed softly through the stone chambers. Laughter filled the tunnel as the teenagers moved deeper inside. They explored freely, shining their lights into crevices and wandering through branching passages. Some tunnels led nowhere. Others twisted deeper into darkness. To experienced cavers, the environment would have shown clear warning signs. Loose stones littered the ground. Sections of the ceiling appeared fractured. Certain areas showed evidence of slow erosion and shifting rock. But none of that stood out to the teenagers. Their attention was fixed on discovery. And eventually, one discovery changed everything. As Barry scanned the cave wall with his flashlight, something unusual caught his attention. A narrow opening hidden in shadow. A thin crack in the rock that appeared to lead further into the mountain. It was not part of the main passage, and it was not something the others had noticed. To Barry, it looked like opportunity, a hidden route, possibly unexplored. The group gathered around the opening and aimed their lights inside. The space beyond was tight, much tighter than the tunnels they had been walking through. But the passage continued, and curiosity can be powerful. While several of the teenagers continued exploring the larger chambers of the cave, Barry and Dana decided to investigate the narrow opening. At first, squeezing through the crack was manageable. They turned their bodies sideways to slip between the stone walls. Further ahead, the tunnel forced them onto their hands and knees. Soon after that, the passage became even smaller. They had to crawl on their stomachs, pushing forward inch by inch. The air grew still and quiet. The space around them tightened. Their flashlight beams revealed that the tunnel kept going, but the path ahead narrowed into something more extreme. At its tightest point, the passage measured barely 45 centimeters wide and about 60 centimeters high. Even experienced cavers would approach such a restriction carefully. Barry, being slightly smaller, went first. Dana followed closely behind him. The rock walls pressed tightly against their bodies. Every movement required effort. To push forward, they had to exhale fully. flattening their chests just enough to slide ahead. Eventually, Barry reached a section where the tunnel became impossibly tight. The rock in front of him formed a partial blockage. No matter how he shifted his body, he could not squeeze through. At that moment, the safest decision would have been simple: turn around, crawl back out. But determination and impatience can override caution. Barry believed the obstruction might be temporary, maybe just loose rocks blocking the path, maybe something he could clear. With limited movement inside the narrow passage, Barry reached forward and grabbed a small stone roughly the size of a softball. Using it like a hammer, he began striking the rocks ahead of him. The idea was simple: knock the obstruction loose, create just enough space to continue forward. But caves exist in delicate balance. Many formations remain stable only because every piece supports another. Each strike from Barry's improvised hammer sent vibrations through the surrounding stone. Dust drifted down from above. The rock walls shifted slightly with every impact. Neither Barry nor Dana could see what was happening above them, but the mountain could feel it. Then came a sound that neither of them would ever forget. A deep crack, sudden, violent. The noise thundered through the narrow passage, and before either of them could react, the ceiling behind them gave way. A massive boulder, later estimated to weigh over 300 pounds, tore free from the rock above. It crashed down directly behind Dana. The impact shook the tunnel like an earthquake. Stone ground against stone. Dust exploded into the air, filling the confined space. For several seconds, the cave roared with shifting rock. Then everything went silent. When the dust settled, the reality became clear. The enormous boulder had sealed the passage behind them. Their exit was gone. Barry and Dana were trapped. The space they occupied was barely larger than a coffin. Barry remained pinned near the narrowest point of the tunnel, the rock walls pressed tightly against his chest. Every breath required effort. Behind him, Dana was wedged between Barry's legs and the enormous stone that had become their prison wall. Panic began to spread. Their flashlights illuminated nothing but stone inches from their faces. When they turned the lights off to conserve batteries, the darkness became absolute, complete, total. They could hear their friends on the other side of the boulder, distant voices shouting through the rock. But the stone barrier was immovable. The other teenagers tried desperately to push it aside. They scraped at smaller rocks surrounding it. They shouted instructions, they pulled, they pushed, but the boulder did not move. To them, it might as well have been part of the mountain itself. Inside the tight tunnel, time began to stretch. Minutes felt like hours. The pressure against Barry's chest made breathing painful. Dana struggled to remain calm in the cramped darkness. The air around them slowly warmed from their body heat, muscles cramped from being unable to move. Circulation slowed. The psychological strain became overwhelming. Above them lay thousands of tons of stone. Every tiny sound felt threatening. A shifting pebble, a faint drip of water, the distant echoes of the cave itself. Each noise raised the terrifying possibility of another collapse. Eventually, their friends made the only decision they could. They had to leave the cave. They had to get help. Several of the teenagers ran back through the winding tunnels toward the surface. When they emerged into daylight, they immediately contacted emergency services. The call reached Sheridan County rescue teams. Within a short time, trained responders began mobilizing specialized equipment. They understood immediately how difficult the situation would be. Rescuing people from deep inside a cave is never simple. Every tool had to be carried underground by hand. Passages were narrow, movement was slow, and the unstable rock made the environment extremely dangerous. Rescuers arrived with hydraulic jacks, winches, and specialized equipment designed for confined space emergencies. But even with professional tools, the situation remained incredibly challenging. Only 1 or 2 rescuers could reach the work area at a time. Every movement had to be cautious. The rock formation surrounding the trapped teenagers was fragile. One mistake could cause another collapse. Hours passed as rescuers prepared the equipment. Deep in the cave, Barry and Dana continued waiting in darkness. Their breathing grew shallow. Their muscles throbbed from pressure and immobility. Hypothermia also became a concern. The cave's cool temperature slowly drained warmth from their bodies. Above ground, the rescue operation turned into a race against time. Finally, the rescue team positioned their winch system around the massive stone. The plan required careful coordination. If the boulder shifted incorrectly, it could wedge even tighter or trigger more falling rock.
Apply more pressure, easy now.
It's grinding hard. We have movement on the left side.
Watch the ceiling, we've got dust.
Slowly, the rescuers applied pressure. Metal cables tightened. The winch groaned under the weight. For several tense moments, nothing happened. Then the stone moved, only slightly, but enough. Inch by inch, the 300-pound boulder began sliding away from the tunnel. Rescuers continued pulling with extreme caution. Dust fell from the ceiling as the rock shifted. Finally, after hours of work, the passage reopened. For the first time since the collapse, Barry and Dana could move. The relief was overwhelming, but their bodies had endured hours of compression. Muscles cramped violently as rescuers carefully pulled them free from the narrow passage. Slowly, they were guided back through the cave. Each step toward the exit felt surreal, like returning from another world. It was approximately 10:30 p.m. when Barry and Dana finally emerged from Tongue River Cave. Nearly 8 hours had passed since they had first entered the cave that afternoon. What began as a simple exploration had nearly ended in tragedy. The teenagers survived, but the experience left a lasting impression on everyone involved. Caves may appear silent and peaceful, but beneath the surface, they remain unpredictable environments shaped by forces far beyond human control. Even a single loose stone can change everything. For Barry Blaha and Dana Herbert, that day became a powerful reminder of how quickly adventure can become danger, and how deep beneath the earth, the margin between survival and disaster can be only a few inches of stone.